Welcome to Totally Abstracted. I'm Michelle, and today's episode is exploring the connection between the artist and their work, and why attempting to separate the two is not only impossible, but counterproductive. As creators working in abstract landscapes, we inhabit a space where emotion, intuition, and memory converge into something visual and deeply felt. What's fascinating is that people who connect with our work are often responding to far more than just colour or composition. They responded to the human essence within, even when they can't articulate why. So let's explore what it truly means to create work that carries your authentic self, and why embracing vulnerability in your art might be the most powerful creative decision you can make. You've undoubtedly heard the phrase, every painting is a self-portrait. Now, initially, many artists resist this idea, thinking it's too literal or limiting. But the deeper truth here isn't about painting your physical likeness or literal life experiences. It's about the invisible threads that connect your inner world to your creative output. Consider the colours artists gravitate toward during different emotional seasons, the textures that emerge when processing difficult experiences, the compositional choices that repeat, revealing preoccupations the conscious mind might not even recognise. Artists often discover their own emotional states through their work retrospectively. Someone might comment that a piece feels particularly peaceful, prompting the artist to realise they were indeed seeking calm during its creation, perhaps desperately needing that calm. So our work then becomes a record of our inner lives, not just what we observe in the external world, but how we process it, feel it, and exist within it. This is why identical subjects painted by different artists can feel worlds apart, because they filtered through entirely different human experiences. Now, I think abstract landscapes offer a unique freedom because they transcend literal representation. They create space for multiple layers of meaning, emotional, textural, symbolic, and intuitive. These layers weave together to tell stories that exist beyond conscious narrative. Think about even the methodology of layered painting, the adding, and in my case, scraping away, the veiling, the revealing. This process can mirror how we navigate life, shaped by experience, weathered by time, transformed by what we choose to release and what we allow to remain. So when viewers respond to abstract landscape work, they're encountering traces of human experience made visible. They might not understand the specific circumstances that informed the piece, but they might recognise something familiar in the emotional resonance. This recognition creates a bridge between the artist's inner world and the viewer's own experiences. This is why abstract landscape art can feel so personal to different viewers. It provides a framework for projection, while still carrying the authentic emotional signature of its creator. So let's go a little deeper into all of this. Research in psychology suggests that humans are naturally drawn to authenticity, even when they can't consciously identify it. We're wired to detect genuine emotion and respond to it. This might explain why some technically proficient artwork can leave us cold, while other pieces, perhaps less perfect, moves us deeply. Artists who try to create from a purely intellectual place often find their works lack the magnetic quality that draw people in. Conversely, those who allow their authentic selves to show up with all of their complexity, contradictions, vulnerabilities, create work that resonates on a deeper level. This doesn't mean every piece needs to be an emotional outpouring. Rather, it means approaching your work with honesty about who you are in that moment, what you're curious about, what you're struggling with, and what brings you joy. But there's often confusion about how much artists should share about themselves and their process. Many feel pressure to let the work speak for itself, maintaining a kind of mysterious distance. But I think this approach misunderstands what actually creates lasting connections with audiences. Art collectors and enthusiasts frequently report that learning about an artist's intention, process, or inspiration doesn't diminish their experience of the work, it actually enriches it. A brief artist statement, an insight into technique, or even a glimpse into the emotional landscape that informed a piece can transform casual interest into deep appreciation. This is one of the reasons I started my YouTube channel and this podcast. I realised that sharing my process, my thoughts, and even my hesitations and worries wasn't a distraction from the work, it was an extension of it. It's not always easy though, especially when you're naturally private or uncertain about how much to reveal. But for me, documenting and speaking about my creative process has become a way to, I suppose, honour the full journey, not just the finished piece. And I've found that people connect more deeply with the work when they understand the heart behind it. Sharing like this helps me stay present and honest, and hopefully gives others permission to do the same. But this isn't about over-explaining or removing mystery from your work. It's about, I guess, creating entry points for connection. When artists share authentically, not to impress or perform, but to genuinely connect, they invite viewers to bring their own stories and experiences into dialogue with the work. Consider how many iconic artworks become even more powerful when we understand something of their context. Knowing about an artist's struggles, breakthroughs, or philosophical explorations doesn't replace our direct experience of the work, but it can add layers of meaning and emotional resonance. Now, I know traditional art criticism often promotes the idea that we should separate the artist from the art. The work should be judged purely on formal merits without considering the person who created it. Now, while there's value in formal analysis, I think this approach misses something essential about how our art actually functions in human experience. Think about the artist whose work continues to captivate us across generations. Van Gogh's swirling skies carry more weight when we understand his mental state. Rothko's colour fields become more profound when we know about his spiritual searching. Hilma af Klint's abstractions gain additional power when we learn about her mystical investigations. This doesn't mean we can't appreciate work without biographical knowledge, but rather that the human story behind the art often enhances rather than detracts from our experience. Even when encountering work by completely unknown artists, sensitive viewers can detect something of the creator's presence, their rhythms, their preoccupations, their way of seeing. So your work carries you within it, whether you acknowledge it or not. The question isn't whether you're present in your art, but whether you're willing to be consciously present. Neuroscience reveals fascinating insights about how we respond to art. Mirror neurons, the same brain cells that fire when we observe others' actions and emotions, appear to activate when we view artwork. This suggests we're literally feeling something of the artist's experience when we engage with their work. This biological basis for empathetic response explains why authentic expression is so powerful. When an artist creates from a place of genuine feeling, that emotional authenticity gets encoded in the work in ways that viewers can sense, even if they can't articulate how. So understanding this can be liberating for artists who worry about being too personal in their work. Your authentic emotions and experiences aren't self-indulgent in any way. They're the very thing that allows others to connect with your art on a meaningful level. In our current cultural moment, authenticity has become both more valued and more challenging to achieve. Social media culture can pressure artists to perform authenticity rather than simply being authentic. So the key is distinguishing between genuine self-expression and manufactured personality. You don't need to share everything or turn your art practice into therapy, but you also don't need to hide behind a facade of professional distance. The most powerful approach is often found in the middle ground, being genuinely yourself while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Allow your natural curiosities to guide your work. Let your emotional responses inform your colour choices. Permit your life experiences to influence your compositional decisions. This isn't unprofessional, it's what makes your art uniquely yours. When you create with this kind of honesty, you produce something irreplaceable. No one else has your exact combination of experiences, temperament, and perspective, and that uniqueness is your greatest artistic asset. So how do you practically embrace this connection between yourself and your work? Well, start by paying attention to your natural inclinations. What colours do you reach for instinctively? What subjects or themes keep appearing in your work? What emotions tend to surface during your creative process? Rather than fighting these tendencies or trying to be more universal, lean into them. Your particular way of seeing and feeling is what distinguishes your work from everyone else's. Consider keeping a creative journal where you note not just what you're working on, but how you're feeling, what you're thinking about, what's influencing you. Over time, patterns will emerge that can inform both your artistic development and how you talk about your work. Practice sharing small insights about your process or inspiration too. It doesn't mean revealing everything, but offering occasional glimpses into your creative world. Notice how people respond when you share authentically versus when you stick to purely technical descriptions. The art world can sometimes feel transactional, focused on sales, exhibitions, and career advancement. But the most fulfilling artistic relationships often develop when connection, rather than transaction, becomes the primary goal. When you approach your art practice as a form of communication, rather than just personal expression, something shifts. You begin to consider how your authentic self might resonate with others who share similar experiences, questions, or sensibilities. This doesn't mean pandering to an audience or creating what you think people want. Instead, it means trusting that your genuine interests and concerns are shared by others, and that expressing them honestly will attract the right people to your work. Consider the artist whose work has endured across decades or centuries. Rarely are they remembered for perfect technique alone. More often, they're remembered for their particular way of seeing, their emotional honesty, and their willingness to be vulnerable in their expression. This perspective can be both humbling and encouraging. You don't need to be the most technically skilled artist in your field. You need to be the most authentically you, and to have the courage to let that authenticity show up in your work. The artists who create lasting impact are often those who refuse to separate themselves from their art, who allow their full humanity to inform their creative expression. So here's a multi-part challenge to explore the connection between yourself and your work. Part 1 is to create from feeling. Create a piece that emerges from a specific emotional state. Joy, melancholy, anticipation, nostalgia, or whatever feels most present for you right now. Don't plan it intellectually. Let the feeling guide your choices of colour, texture, and composition. Part 2 is document the process. As you work, pay attention to what's happening internally. What thoughts arise? What memories surface? What decisions feel instinctive versus calculated? Jot down brief notes without stopping your creative flow. Then in part 3, reflect and connect. After completing the piece, spend some time looking at it. What do you see of yourself in the work? What surprises you? Write a short reflection, not explaining what the piece means, but describing what it felt like to create it. And then part 4, share mindfully. If you feel comfortable, share the piece with others, whether in my membership, if you remember, or with friends or on social media. Include a brief, honest note about your experience creating it. Notice how people respond differently when you share from authenticity rather than hiding behind artistic distance. And then part 5, listen and learn. Pay attention to how others respond to your authentic sharing. What resonates? What creates connection? And use these insights to inform your ongoing practice. The relationship between artist and artwork isn't a problem to be solved or a limitation to overcome. It's the very source of art's power to move, inspire, and connect us. When someone falls in love with your art, they're responding to something essentially human within it. Not a curated version of humanity, but the real thing. Complex, contradictory, searching, and alive. Your willingness to show up authentically, to let your genuine self inform your creative expression, is what transforms mere decoration into meaningful art. It's what turns casual viewers into devoted followers, and what creates the kind of artistic legacy that endures. In a world that often feels so disconnected and superficial, authentic artistic expression becomes both a gift and I think a necessity. By refusing to separate yourself from your work, you offer something precious, genuine human connection made visible. So the goal isn't perfection or universal appeal. The goal is honest expression that creates space for authentic connection. That's what makes art not just beautiful, but necessary. Thank you for joining me today for this deeper exploration on Totally Abstracted. I'd love to hear about your experiences with this week's challenge and your thoughts on the artist-artwork connection. Until next time, keep showing up authentically, trust your unique perspective, and remember, stay totally abstracted.